Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. And we want to hear from you. We got Brian Callahan, we got Nick Holtz, we got Bo Hardigree. What is your confidence level in those three coaches to develop Cam Ward? Because we talked about it yesterday. We heard the clips. I heard Buck talking about it on our way in about his confidence level and the ability to do it. So he had a pretty good confidence level. He feels that he can do it. But I mean, again, everybody keeps saying Brian Callahan, but it's not just Brian Callahan. It's Brian Callahan, Nick Holtz, and Bo Hardigree. So I know that Bo Hardigree even stayed an extra day with Cam Ward down there at the NFL. So, I mean, after that private workout. So I know, let's be honest. I know that trade out is a slim possibility, but it's Cam Ward. I mean, I don't think there's any reason to entertain any other kind of notion other than it's Cam Ward at 101. And at this point, it doesn't matter who they send to the Shedeur Sanders Colorado Pro Day. It doesn't matter who they send to a private workout with Abdul Carter is Cam Ward. So what is your confidence level? It's time to take it to the next step. What is your confidence level in Cam Ward being developed by those three coaches right there? But first, before we get to that, because there's a lot around that, because I want to talk about Anthony Richardson, a recent article that came out in the Indy Star about them splitting first team reps between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones and all this kind of stuff. Like, that is the plan. There's a lot to break down in that ties into how do you handle Cam Ward and what's the best way to handle a rookie quarterback in general. But first, there was a trade today. The former Tennessee Volunteers quarterback Joe Milton, 6th-round pick of the New England Patriots, got traded to the Dallas Cowboys. They packaged Joe Milton and a 7th-round pick to the Dallas Cowboys for their compensatory 5th-round pick. So what was interesting about this is that the Raiders, the Eagles, the Giants, the Steelers, and the Cowboys all showed interest in making a trade. The Cowboys are the ones that got it done. So what does that mean for Will Levis in multiple ways? What does it mean for his trade value? And what does it mean for his chances of finding a team after the draft to trade with the Tennessee Titans? Because the Cowboys were pretty obvious hole. So I'll throw the first question to you, Blaine. What do you think this means for Will Levis's chances of actually finding himself in a trade scenario to another team?
Well, I mean, let's first start with there's not enough data, so Milton is an easier target to give up value.
Gotcha.
Where now, Will Levis, you see some of his warts, so it may hurt him. So, and you know, as time goes on, as long as he proves otherwise in preseason, those things will be forgotten or remembered based off of his play if they want to continue to increase his trade value during the preseason. So, you always want to think that the Cowboys always give up a little too much, but all those teams involved, maybe that's what they had to give up, to get them. We shall see. Because Dak Prescott, I think, has gotten hurt in the last 2 years, right?
Yeah. You may see a lot of Joe Milton this year, to be honest with you.
And they lost the Rush kid to the Ravens quarterback, and then Trey Lance is no longer with them, right?
Right.
So, So he's one play away from playing, and probably – I think this may be Dak Prescott's last year there. He better stay healthy. And so, that's kind of how I view the Milton did. You always wonder how much and what charts they use, and you would know better than me. Seems like they gave up a little too much, but hearing all those guys involved, and, oh, by the way, let's look at it this way, too. I don't know, you will say that this is not right. What about what he lost for New England, too, Joe Milton, by winning that last game, going from first pick to fourth pick by winning. So that kind of levels it out for me a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'll say this. We talked about it, me and Jackson did, when he was doing his update, writing his update, saying, hey, if it wasn't for Joe, he goes, how many games did he start? I said, well, I know he at least played in the very last one because the Tennessee Titans would not have the first overall pick if not for Joe Milton.
Well, and some other I think.
And Drew Lock, your boy Drew Lock. So, His boy Joe Milton, your boy Drew Lock, got us our boy Cam Ward for the Tennessee Titans.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, according to you, you want still Shedeur Sanders.
I was still Shedeur Sanders quarterback one. But I'm okay with Cam Ward.
Yeah, no doubt. They're both really talented.
I think Taylor H brings up a really good question in the F&M Bank chat on Zone TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. He says, how many times does Bazooka Joe hit the Dallas Jumbotron? He's going to launch those rainbows right into that scoreboard. Hopefully they got some good insurance on that.
You think it's going to happen, Jackson, during the regular
Maybe a
season?
preseason game?
Probably he'll do that during a preseason game, and then, he'll help Dak Prescott find a new home.
I'm going to say it's going to be 0% of that he hits the Jumbotron.
Sure. So I look at it like this. I agree. And also, I do think that Dallas did overpay because you're paying for a lot of unknown too. But like I said, there were a lot of teams in that hunt. The Raiders, the Eagles, the Giants, Steelers, and the Cowboys. Now that is 5 teams. And I would just want to say something. If I'm in the business of doing business in the NFL, I'm not being so steadfast in my stance of what Chad Brinker said, saying we have not talked to anybody and nobody's talked to us. I find that hard to believe if those 5 teams are at least inquiring about Joe Milton, that those 5 teams probably didn't inquire about Will Levis. Right? I mean, I find that a little hard to believe. Well, now, maybe they're going to inquire about Will Levis now that the Joe Milton trade is done. But I do find those are 5 teams. And I am curious as to when the Giants inquired, because did they inquire before getting Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, or did they inquire after? That'd be an interesting tidbit to know. But I would assume that now the Raiders, Eagles, Giants, and Steelers would at least be inquiring about Will Levis at this point.
Well, it's basically I don't want to call anybody an outright liar, but he didn't even parse words here. He's to where he had an out.
He said no.
Yeah, so I want to believe him. I want to believe that they haven't talked to anybody or any teams. Maybe he's talked to agents.
Maybe.
His agent.
Maybe.
So he did lie.
Maybe he's telling the truth. He's just omitting something.
Yes. And
that's what they need, because that's the second time you've kind of brought that up. Yeah. Because remember when Aaron Rodgers, and he said, we haven't talked to Aaron Rodgers? Mm-hmm. And I do wonder, and then you said, well, maybe he's talked to Aaron Rodgers' agent. So maybe we need to be a little bit more specific with the questions that we asked Chad Brinker.
Well, I think the question was good. I mean, it was just you're leaving out. I think the follow-up question is then say, well, have you talked to his agent? Or, what have you? Have
agents reached out to you?
Right. I mean, so maybe let's say that. But I want to believe him. But, it's hard to kind of believe. Maybe because here's why I want to believe him. I really do. Because I think these guys are somewhat playing the game, but they're also trying to be careful in their wording and what they say about any topic, especially when it comes to Cam Ward or, trade another quarterback, is that they don't want to show their hand. Because if they show that they're trading Will Levis, what do you think that will then do? If you show that you're trying to trade Will Levis, whether you got calls or you made calls, that they are guaranteed going to take Cam Ward. Well, I think everybody now at this point knows it. They just haven't admitted it in so many words they have, but they really haven't said it. And I get it. You're trying to wait to time it up for the perfect time. And there's never really a perfect time, but it's still, we still got a month to go. Pretty much. We got 20-something days, 21 days.
Yeah.
Or so.
3 weeks from today.
Yeah. So, they're just trying to, make sure they still continue. Everything is going in that direction until they feel all the way in. And maybe they also have someone they're talking to that we don't know about.
That is true.
First pick.
I do think it's interesting, though. Like, okay, let's say that Chad Brinker is telling the truth, which there's no reason to really believe that he's not. So let's say that he is. Now those teams should probably be calling. Mm-hmm. I would think at least one of those teams is going to be like, okay, so a 5th and a 7th, you have, like Philadelphia, for instance. Philadelphia has 4 5th-round picks. Or sorry, 4 5th-round picks. I got that right. 4 5th-round picks. That seems like a team that maybe if you wanted to upgrade your 6th-round pick, you could trade with. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you have to trade Will Levis in a 6th, and you're not getting the same return, but you're trading Will Levis in a 6th for a 5th, or just Will Levis straight up for a 5th. That would make a lot of sense to make that connection right there. And I think a guy like him could probably do very well with the tush push as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that could up your tush push game.
Well, I was looking at more the offensive scheme and the system.
And it would fit, I think. I think that would be a good fit. So they don't have a 4th-round pick. So that would, but maybe you'd work out something where you get a 3rd and you give Will Levison a 5th up because you have 2 5ths. I'm just throwing that out there. I do think, though, that a couple of these teams that were in on this will probably be calling the Tennessee Titans about Will Levis's availability. And to be honest with you, I look at it like this. I mean, I think there's people out there that think Brandon Allen automatically will beat out Will Levis because Will Levis got benched for Mason Rudolph. But if I were to make bets, just throwing this out there, first off, I don't think that Will Levis is going to be a on this team. I'd be very surprised. But if it's Cam Ward, Will Levis, Brandon Allen, Tim Boyle, I think Will Levis wins the backup job. And I think he wins it pretty easily, and I think they keep 3. Maybe I'm just wrong about the assumption of that Brian Callenges really loves Brandon Allen, but, I mean, if you want a backup, Will Levis is the higher-end backup than any of those other two. Would you agree?
Yeah, but, it's all about relationships, and, he's been – with the Bengals with them, and he understands a little bit better, so he may want to lean into that more. I mean, that always happens sometimes, and when you're watching games, you go, but that guy's not better than him. It happens with the Titans. Mm-hmm. Like, how does that? It happened when I was there. I was like, what? They cut who? Over the? Oh man, come on, man. So it goes on all the time.
What do you think that's new coach favoritism? Do you think that's something that they may have done or said? What do you think is the reason for that?
I think maybe you understand that player better.
Gotcha.
You trust them more. It's all about trust. What player do you trust that can go out there and execute your offense? And if he believes the other guy, is better and he trusts him, and Will Levis is up and down like a roller coaster ride, like he's an emotional unstable, then that's not the guy you want at quarterback.
Yeah.
That's kind of that simple, really. Whether the guy's better or not. I've seen guys that can't even throw the backside of a barn, but when they get in the game, they look great. Like I saw Dave Craig at the end of his career. He was on our team with the Oilers. I was like, this guy wouldn't start at Ball State.
I know.
Guess what? As soon as he got the ball, that ball came out, and the ball was getting there on the money. See, he understood who he was. Now, we're talking about a veteran, a proven guy, but at the same time, his talent was not there. And guess what? They trusted him.
When we come back, we'll continue our talk because I do have another question for Blaine about this whole topic. But we'll also talk about 2 recent 30 visits that were announced last night that highlight a Titans need. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Ever wonder how I keep my mojo? Well, hey, it's Blaine Bishop here. And if you're looking for the best tacos in town, you got to check out Mojo's Tacos. They've got the 3 amazing locations, including my favorite spot in Nolensville. And Mojo's Tacos is where the magic happens. Whether you're craving their mouth-watering carne asada, their delicious fish tacos, or their famous street corn, they've got it all. And don't forget to try their house-made salsa. They pack a punch. And each location has a great vibe, perfect for family night or catching up with your friends. Plus, their friendly staff will make you feel like you're right at home. So head over to Mojo's Tacos and taste the difference. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Mojo's Tacos, 3 locations, one unforgettable experience you won't regret.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. Here's a team I want to throw out there that wasn't involved in the Joe Milton sweepstakes, but a team that has probably just as bad, probably a worse current backup quarterback situation than Tennessee Titans theoretically would have if they drafted Cam Ward. So Cam Ward plus this quarterback room is better than what they got, in my opinion. And that's Minnesota. Minnesota's backup quarterback is only Brett Ripien. Now, Minnesota only has 4 picks in this draft. So that is where it gets difficult. But I do wonder if maybe you can get a higher future top 100 pick, or not top 100, but future draft pick for Will Levis at some point, because they only have four picks, which means that they're not going to be able, unless they do some kind of trade down in the first round, because they got a first, a third, a fifth, and a sixth. That's what they have. So they likely will not spend one of those picks on a quarterback, I would assume. So that means that coming out of this draft, they're still going to need a backup quarterback, unless they, like you said, sometimes trust matters more. Unless they really trust Brett Ripien to be behind J.J. McCarthy, who is coming off a lot of injury. Yeah. A really significant injury. I do wonder if Will Levis, maybe after the draft, Minnesota is just one to bookmark. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I wouldn't bet money on it, but that's just one that popped in my head when talking about all these teams that were listed, and Minnesota possibly after the draft getting into the trade market for one.
When I hear that, and I did not know, how much has Brett Ripien played?
He played a little bit for
who was he with before?
The Denver Broncos.
Somewhere on the West. Okay.
And he played a little bit for the Rams, but it was not good. He right now has had 4 starts. He is 2-2 as a starter, if that means anything to you. I'm not a big quarterback win stat, but he's 58.3 completion percentage, 4 touchdowns, 9 interceptions over those. He's actually played in 10 games, but only 4 of those are starts.
Well, I'm going to say this. I heard this yesterday from someone who used to play quarterback in the NFL. It was pretty good for the Steelers. Big Ben Roethlisberger. He says, why are you throwing the football to Metcalf at UCLA if you don't plan on signing with the Steelers?
Right.
Unless you're holding out because he believed that he's going to the Minnesota Vikings.
Would that not be the most wild thing, by the way?
He said this now on the podcast.
I know. That just it breaks my brain a little bit, because here's why. That's the exact path Brett Favre took.
I know.
That is insane to me that could happen in our lifetime.
History repeats itself.
Yeah, I know, but I know that Brett Favre was probably before Jackson's time, because he's getting on the mic and he's very young, so he probably only remembers Minnesota Vikings.
And the Jets. But yeah.
I remember Brett in the 2007 NFC Championship game.
There you go.
So it was funny that he said that, because he said if not, he would have already signed with the Steelers. And it made complete sense. And there's a relationship with the head coach.
It really seems, and the way the Steelers talked is that they fully expect Aaron Rodgers to sign with them. The way that the Steelers ownership and head coach kind of talked over the week at the ownership meeting. But here's the thing.
Aaron Rodgers is a mess.
You never expect, whatever you expect of Aaron Rodgers, expect something else. So maybe you're right. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is holding out.
I think, I don't know what they're offering. I think it's somewhere in the 2025. Maybe he's holding out also to see if they take a quarterback to make sure his next stop is, I'm going to be here for a couple of years and I'm going to prove that I can win another championship if you put the right pieces in place. And Minnesota, and by the way, the Steelers do have decent enough teams. They have at least playoff contending teams, you would assume, without injuries, that they can at least get to the playoffs, and how far they go, maybe Aaron Rodgers believes then his talent will take over.
We're supposedly, I'd have to fact check this, but mispronouncing Brett's last name. It's not Ripien, even though it's totally spelled that way. It's Ripon.
Oh, Ripon.
So I would blame his ancestors for spelling their name and not knowing how to pronounce it. So Don't blame us, blame them.
Stop that.
You just got spelled. I've never heard his name said out loud. I've never heard anybody, so I just assumed what it was. But
I would have definitely said Rippon.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking of, what's it, Mark Rippon?
Well, that's his dad, apparently, or his uncle or something.
No, he pronounces it
Uncle.
Rippon.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
But it's not spelled that way. I just want to say.
Yeah. So, so there's no fault in that and all that. Yeah.
But that is his uncle. So there you go.
Okay.
You were on the right track. You would have nailed that one. You could have corrected me on that. You said you had your chance.
I will never do that.
So we're talking about backup quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff. We've been talking about competition, how you prefer to have your backup quarterback, have someone that pushes your rookie quarterback and all that kind of stuff. And we've talked about how the Colts really mishandled the whole Anthony Richardson thing. They drafted him. They gave him the starting job right off the top. He has proven to be inconsistent, and he has proven not to be able to stay healthy. And all his, negatives coming out of college, his starts and all that kind of stuff, they just kind of ignored his lack of experience and just thrust him into the spotlight and put all this pressure and onus on him because they drafted him in the top 5. And what's interesting, listen, let's put a disclaimer out there. Neither of us in this discussion are saying that Cam Ward needs anything more, his hand held like Anthony Richardson done.
No.
Okay? They are two totally different prospects. Cam Ward is clearly a better and more experienced prospect. But I do find it interesting how they handled it. And recently, Joel Erickson of the Indy Star wrote a big, long article about Anthony Richardson. It says why the Colts changed how they were developing Anthony Richardson by bringing in competition. So they basically are correcting a 2-year mistake, and they're trying to correct it because they said, Shane Steichen said that Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson will split first-team reps. Anthony Richardson, in his 3rd year, is splitting reps with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has a real chance to win the competition, maybe. I don't know if this is one of those things where it's a fake competition and they're just trying to get, iron sharpen iron, trying to get Anthony Richardson motivated. And you'd say, Zach, why would he need motivation? Well, Indianapolis benched Richardson for the next 2 starts because of a lack of attention to detail in his preparation. It's not just the tap out from fatigue. It was also that. I cannot imagine and I think that's why a lot of the veterans really, when he tapped out, really were pretty vocal in the media about that. Because obviously he was not taking his preparation as seriously as he should.
That's alarming.
That is alarming. Now, that has nothing to do with Will Levis. I don't think Will Levis has that issue, and I don't think Cam Ward will have that issue. But it goes back to the question, can the Titans do a disservice by not having a little bit better of a backup for Cam Ward than Brandon Allen? And that's the question I propose to you.
Yeah, well, that's their call because they know Cam better than anybody else. Now, first and foremost, this is just me. This is this is how my thought process is for pro players. If you have to bring in somebody for motivation, he's not your guy. Right there off the bat. He's supposed to have his own internal motivation to be the best version of himself without anything. I love the iron sharpens iron. Well, guess what? I do approve of that, but let's make it where you split reps so he understands nothing will be given to you. It will be all earned, probably in this case with Cam Ward, instead of giving you something. So that's where I was coming from my angle of why you just can't hand it to him. Now, some situations are fit for different ways that you treat players. I don't know Cam. All I can go is based off his talent and what I want to do to bring the best out of him. The best. And if that's him splitting reps with Levis or whoever, Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle, nothing against those guys. That is not helping him. That is not helping him be a better player physically. Maybe they can help him mentally in the meeting rooms and digesting information and everything else. I get that. That is a possibility. But at the end of the day, it's all about that action, boss. And what that action is, when we get on this field, you're going to see what I'm about. And I think Cam Ward is about that guy. But guess what? I want to make sure he stays sharp the whole time. And I'm talking about during training camp and things of that nature. And then once the season started, if he's the guy, guess what? He proved it not only to himself, to you and his teammates. Now, when there's a falter, now you know it's all because of he just made a bad play or somebody missed the block or somebody dropped the ball or whatever it may be, but he earned it, and then there will be no, let's go to the next guy. See? If you hand it, then you say, he's not. See, there's easy out like the coach did. He wasn't ready. That's our fault. Or he wasn't motivated. He wasn't. No, you get that all out the way in training camp and you find out who he really is. That's what that's for. Not to say it's supposed to go on the whole season, but during the process of OTAs and then training camp, all of that's supposed to be decided during that time.
Yeah. I am with you. I have a hard time, and that's where I kind of land on obviously Will Levis is a better talent than Ripien. And when not Rip, I'm thinking about that because I'm looking at the chat. Quit looking at the chat.
You're pulling the Will Levis, you're in your own
Brandon
head.
Allen. Okay, rewire my brain. Let me reset here. Brandon Allen. When Brandon Allen initially got hired, I said, well, Will Levis can push him physically.
Yes, he can.
Allen can push him mentally. So if you were to trade Will Levis, who's pushing him physically? There isn't a guy on this roster who's pushing him physically. And that kind of goes to, okay, maybe there's a talented, undrafted free agent that falls. Now, again, we're just looking for someone to push him physically, not mentally. Maybe there's a guy like that falls. Or maybe they draft a guy. I mean, like the Green Bay Packers history and all this kind of stuff, they're not shy of drafting 2 quarterbacks. So maybe they draft a second quarterback in the 6th round. And maybe that's just how the board falls. And they're like, okay, well, this is our time to draft a second quarterback, and this person can maybe push him physically. But at the same time, that's still not real physical competition in my mind. And again, that's why I think they kind of faltered assembling this quarterback room. Because to me, if they're not going to say, their actions have said they're going all in on Cam Ward. If you're really worried about the media catching on, quote unquote catching on, and you want to keep your options open, then you really needed to have signed a better backup quarterback. Because we all know you're not going with Will Levis as QB1 into the season. We know that you're going to be drafting a quarterback. You should have upgraded what you got. And there were still options. I mean, Gardner Minshew would have been a good one to sign at some point, but they didn't. They lost on him. They kind of, toyed with this, but they have a hardline stance on what they were willing to spend on a backup quarterback. And that's why they signed Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle, which tells me you guys should have upped the budget.
Here's what they should have done. And, I took notes from Jackson on this recommendation. And that is they should have traded Hendon Hooker for Will Levis.
They should have. Listen.
Right, Jackson?
I think they should have. I'm trying to find.
I think Jackson would like it, and I think the Tennessee fan base would love it.
I think it's ultimately a net neutral, though.
Well, Casey Jones in the F&M Bank chat on Twitch.
But you got new settings, sometimes a change of scenery for NFL guys, especially quarterback. It's sometimes refreshing.
Casey Jones says, okay, if Joe Milton can fetch a 5th, we can give number 35 for Hendon Hooker.
Now, that's ridiculous. That's a little
That is obviously a joke.
Okay.
Now, I know that there would be people that actually would call in and say that, but I know that at least he's being sarcastic about it.
Yeah, so so just that's what I was thinking about scenery, and hey, I don't know what's going on with Hooker and why they brought in Teddy Bridgewater, proven guy. At the end of the season, maybe they just thought he wasn't ready, and so I just don't know if they love him or not. They say they have, but I'm all about action. Their actions said otherwise. See, their actions always tell you what you're thinking,
right?
Not the actual words.
Thomas Locke in the F&M Bank Channel on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live says, Ward doesn't need someone to push him. He needs someone to get him up to speed. They did that. And I think they need both. I mean, you could have found, I agree with that. You could have found one one guy that does both, though. I mean, like you could have found a guy. I'm not saying there was only one guy out there, but you could have found someone that can do both. Like, why? this thing is like settling for one when you can have both things at a modest price. I just will never understand that with this Titans organization and fan base.
Maybe they really believe in Will Levis will be the two, and they say he gives us the physical part. And guess what? If we don't need him to do the mental part with helping Ward, we have Allen and Boyle.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe they really do believe, and maybe everybody is right, or not everybody. The few people that think that Will Levis is going to be on their roster, maybe they're right. Maybe Will Levis will be on this roster, and like I said, if he's on this roster, he's your number 2 quarterback.
Yep.
I mean, he is. I would have to assume you don't put him at number 3 or make him your emergency quarterback, because then if you do the emergency quarterback, you have to cut him. So that's not going to work. So he's just at least making the final 53 in some capacity.
Well, I'm banking on that he's a blue-collar, hard worker guy, and because that's what I hear all about him, and that he will be better, let's say, mentally. Now, he can only go up based off of what we're hearing. So I would say then he understands the offense a little bit better, and then he gets no pressure on him now. The number 1 guy is the number 1 guy. So if he does get to play, and I'm talking about in the regular season, something happens or he gets nicked up, or that is, then he will look somewhat better. And so then your confidence kind of gradually starts going in a different direction. So you just never know. Here's why I say that. We all talked about Malik Willis and how his improvement year by year with the Titans. And that last year or last season, you saw drastic improvement.
Yeah.
His first year, he shouldn't even been on the roster. So, all seriousness.
His first year, he shouldn't have been in the NFL.
Right.
Like.
So
those first 2 years,
they're not the same mental makeup people. Yeah. They're different people, but you just never know. I'm a big believer in this. I don't know Will Levis, and I don't know what's inside of his head. But what I do know is he's a competitor. And so when you fail, if you don't come back roaring like a lion, then you might as well just get out the business.
Yeah.
And I think he's a guy that likes to roar. He just needs to tame his roar when you're a quarterback.
We got several good questions in the comments of the F&M Bank chat, but I want to get to John, who just called in, who wants to talk about Will Levis. John, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say Cam Ward, he's definitely the guy. I mean, this guy's special, and that's my opinion. I think he's the best quarterback in the draft, and I think he's going to work out fine. Now, as far as Will Levis goes, I think Will Levis got a really raw deal here in Nashville. The man really competed. I think some of the media, radio people are really hard on him. Not you guys, but other people.
You can say me. I've definitely been hard on him.
I don't think you were. I think Blaine was pretty fair about the whole thing. And Will Levis reminds me of Terry Bradshaw in not that he's ever going to be that kind of quarterback, but just in his size. He's not as mobile, but he is somewhat mobile. But people used to say, "Oh, Terry Bradshaw, he's dumb." I remember when I was growing up, he's dumb. He can't play. He can't do this. He can't do that. And what did he do? So you just never know what's inside of a guy and what he's going to do. So I don't know if the Titans should get rid of Will, because you never know what's going to happen with Cam. He might get hurt. And then what do we have?
Yeah,
Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle.
You got Brandon Allen, Tim Boyle. Thanks, John. I agree, because I've always said the only thing that's going to fail Will Levis is his ability on the field. His work ethic is not an issue. I don't have any issue with his work ethic. I don't have any issue that he want his strive to be great. His drive. I don't have any issue with that. And again, I think kind of Terry Bradshaw's a pretty good, career path kind of guy where, again, I mean, I wasn't alive then, so I'm going to have to take John's word for it. But he's saying that everybody was kind of calling, Bradshaw dumb at the start of his career. Yeah, that sounds a little bit like what we got going on here.
Yeah, just to enough level. Now, he doesn't have Lynn Swan or John Stallworth.
That's true.
Franco Harris to run the ball. But, that was a fabulous defensive team to steal curtain and everything else. But he did eventually get it, and he got his opportunity, made the most of it. So that's why I would say that about the quarterback. And to a certain extent, I completely agree with him somewhat that he didn't get, things around him weren't all in place. Now, some of it was on him, and he needs to take that ownership. But yeah, the offensive line, the weapons, and everything else, yeah, there's parts of that is not 100% Levis. But some of those plays that he was not supposed to do, especially early in the season, kind of dictated a little bit the direction it went, because it happened really like 2 or 3 games, where you're like, oh my gosh, he lost the game. They were in the game, and that's what everybody was saying. He somewhat lost the game, and all they had to do was just take the sack. So it was a learning experience. I look at everything as a learning experience when you're an athlete and when you fail. Eventually, now that he's got a way to go back and look at everything that happened and say, okay, this is what I need to work on, whether I'm the starter or not, have a positive attitude about it, and say, look, this is who I am. Let's me guard against some of the things I try to do. And what will he do and not to keep it from getting in his head? And I get it. It happens all the time. And I don't care what industry you're in. So if he can do it, let's see if watching, then he learns and then gets better. And
maybe
then he had
that's
a whole
what they're
offseason.
banking on.
And he may. And I used the Willis. Malik Willis, and I go, oh man, you saw strides, so it can happen.
It can happen. And listen, 2 years of Will Levis his first 2 years of Will Levis is better than the first 2 years of Malik Willis.
Yes,
there's no doubt about that. I mean, if you want to try to argue something
they
else in there,
7 plays or something, 7 passes in a game.
If you want to try to argue that. That Chiefs game. If you want to try to argue that's your prerogative, but there is nothing in the first 2 years that says the Malik Willis's first 2 years was even remotely as good as Will Levis. And I don't think Will Levis's are that good. Right. But Malik Willis made a huge stride because of his drive to be good. And I don't know Will Levis personally, but from the outside looking in, I feel like he has that same kind of drive. When we come back, we got tons of questions in the chat about this topic. Some comments, too. We got Luke on the line. We'll get to him. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
We've got the trucks, all the trucks, all the trims, all the towing, all the bells and whistles, and all at Truck Month Savings. Two Rivers Ford is Ford Truck Central.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door, 615-737-1045. It's kind of gone from, we're talking about, what Cam Ward needs or what's best for Cam Ward in the backup room, and we're kind of talking about the pros and cons of keeping Will Levis. And so 615-737-1045, you have a strong opinion about that. We want to hear from you. And Luke wants to talk about Will Levis. Luke, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, guys. How are y'all?
Doing good.
Great.
So, okay. So I don't hate the idea of keeping him on there just because I think he would know going in, like he's not going to be the guy and he's got to fix some things. But Blaine, I wanted to ask you, you played at a high level, and in your experience, can guys train their brain out of like some of these tendencies, like whether they're a quarterback or a wide receiver or a corner, that when the pressure is immense and you can't think, and these guys revert back to bad habits, like trying to force play or holding on to the ball too long. Now that he's going into another off season, has a lot of time to break down film and train, in your experience, can guys train out of that and retrain their brain to stop those bad habits, or is he always going to regress to doing those boneheaded things? Or, I think Callahan said basically all the routes have to be in the same direction or something for him to process it. I just wanted to get your opinion because, he obviously has a higher ceiling potentially than the other two backups. So I don't know, can he become a great quarterback, or do you think his brain is just wired like that and that's just how it's going to be? Thanks, guys. I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks, Luke.
Hey, that's a great question, because you really don't know, because it's always on an individual basis. And that's why I said I always keep talking. I haven't met him, and I don't know how he works and how his brain processes information. I would say you can train yourself out of it. And to his point is, when you get back in those critical situations, you have to, as an athlete, see the success and continue it. If you don't, and you go back to what you were in those pressure situations, then it can become an issue. So you can go a season or, some games, but there may be not any pressure situations. But sometimes when you get in that pressure, then some guys revert back. And it could be any position. Now, naturally, mentally, the quarterback is the toughest. So I would say that is going to be tough task. You could see it for a while, but you hope that he could continue through pressure situation. Here's what I'd love to see, is that he does do well, and then he has a pressure situation, he fails, then he given another opportunity, then have success in the pressure situation. This is something what I was saying last year, is that because you want to be sure as a coach that what you saw is true. Because nobody's perfect. The coach didn't call every call the right call, and sometimes players are covering for coaches when they make a bad call, because instinctively they go out there and just this is not going to work, and you just kind of manage through it. So I think he may not get that opportunity with Cam Ward, but I'd love to see if wherever he goes, if he's not here, to see that maturation process. And I really believe that he has the mechanism and the work ethic to do it. It's just that I don't know how his brain is wrapped and wired, and how much pressure he puts on himself even without a pressure situation, because sometimes I feel like he does. when I watch him play. He sees first read, it's not open, then he kind of goes through this panic mode in his head. I don't want to make a mistake. I'm holding to the ball. I'm going to take a sack instead of just playing naturally and, holistically through the play and just let your talents take over. And I think he tries to do so right and perfect that could be his downfall.
I look at guys like Geno Smith and Sam Darnold.
Mm-hmm.
And now, obviously, I don't know if it's a rewiring or anything, but they've obviously learned over the years and changed, right? But again, there are critical moments and critical spots and big games where you see New York Jets Geno Smith, where you see New York Jets Sam Darnold show up. Well, we saw that over the last few games, right? So to the caller's point, I don't think you're ever going to get rid of Chicago Bears Will Levis. What you're hoping to do is to have Chicago Bears Will Levis show up in one game and pray that it's not the critical game at maximum. Like
you're saying that he could never get out?
I think there's always games where someone they revert. And it may be not every season, but look at Jordan Love, right? I mean, Jordan Love looks really good for a big stretch of games, and then he reverts back to old Jordan Love. Same thing with Sam Darnold. Same thing with Geno Smith. And Will Levis isn't in a tier like Jared Goff. I mean, we saw Jared Goff throw 3 or 4 interceptions, right? Like, occasionally the old you pops up because you run into a defense that forces bad tendencies. And it's just maybe a bad matchup. And the pressure gets to you, and you revert to what feels comfortable. I just don't think that guy ever really goes away for quarterbacks. It just doesn't seem like that guy ever goes away.
Well, I think what you're looking for is a perfect quarterback.
And there isn't one. That's what I'm trying to say.
Even though once you do get past that, you're still going to make mistakes.
Yeah, right.
But the difference is now you can recover.
Pull up.
Right.
And I do think that can happen.
That's the part. And so he didn't get the opportunity to really do that, in my mind. Either where he was injured and then, or they didn't. That's why I kept on saying I would have played him. I wouldn't have benched him. I wouldn't have let him play. I wouldn't have played Mason Rudolph. And so it's just I have a different take on it. And I just sometimes I think coaches are quick triggered. No, I mean different take than what they did.
Coach.
What they did. Because I know that you also need support.
Yeah.
Even when you fail. And at this time, the team was already bad.
Right.
So the pressure wasn't on to win games now. The pressure's now to, let's see if he can pull himself out of it. Then I know exactly what I got now. And I know I don't want him here next year.
Yeah.
See, now the door's still open because you never got to see it.
Right. And it's really interesting because we're talking about rewiring Will Levis's brain and all that stuff. And I want to talk about maybe rewiring something different with Will Levis. And this kind of inspired by what the caller said, but also what Thomas Locke has said in the chat. In my opinion, and now listen, this is what the texter said, or the chat, the YouTube chat, F&M Bank Chat, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live for the Zone TV. I don't know Will Levis. But he says, from his view, in my opinion, Thomas Locke says, Levis doesn't have the humility to be a backup on this team. He believes it's his job and he can get it back if Ward is drafted. That's not a fruitful quarterback room. So my question to you is not necessarily does he have the humility, but do you think that Will Levis is a guy that, don't you kind of want your backup to think it's his job? Or is that going to be too combative of an environment for the locker room?
Like I said, I don't know Will Levis. And,
right.
At some point, every player is going to have some form of humility because you're going to get benched or you're going to have a bad game. And so, I don't know if he would be a problem in the locker room or in the quarterback room. I would assume that he wouldn't be.
Because he hasn't earned that, right?
Right, exactly.
Because Aaron Rodgers kind of earned being.
That's why I say that about it. Right. See, that's what I'm getting. So I don't feel like Levis would be that kind of guy.
And that wouldn't be fruitful for your own situation, right? Because then
they would know.
Because you know what's going to happen is that the NFL is going to hear about it, right? You're going to hear about it on ESPN, or you're going to see a clip go viral, or you're going to see something in the news, and then other teams are going to hear that and they're going to be like, "Well, do I want to bring that guy?" into my locker room. And I don't get the sense that he is that guy, but that is a valid question to say, what happens? Do you just tell Will Levis that he's the backup? Didn't you tell Cam Ward's a starter, or do you let it be a kind of a fraudulent competition? We'll talk about that when we come back. How should the Titans handle it? Yeah, fraudulent competition. We'll talk about that when we come back, because I got 4 questions from the YouTube chat I still want to get to. We got Jason on the line as well. 615-737-1045 is the number. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 1045 The Zone.
Hey, folks, I've been talking about Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance for years because they're the leading experts in sports medicine and performance and the team physician for the NFL, college, and high school athletics across Tennessee. And TOA provides sports medicine coverage to more high school and college sports teams than any orthopedic group in the state of Tennessee. They have 29 locations throughout the state and over 100 physicians throughout Middle and East Tennessee to take care of all your musculoskeletal needs. And TOA has 11 urgent care locations with walk-in availability 7 days a week. They offer direct access to sports medicine and performance, physical therapy, and nutrition. Personalized rehabilitation plans to enhance mobility, reduce pain, and improve overall physical function for patients recovering from injuries or surgeries. And TOA also offers sports performance training, a specialized program designed to enhance athletic performance and provide tailored training solutions for athletes at all levels, folks. So please check out their services at TOA.com. Yes, that's TOA.com.
It is 2:02. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. Some breaking news in the NFL as the Raiders and quarterback Geno Smith have agreed to terms on a 2-year extension after a blockbuster trade with the Seahawks sent Smith to Vegas earlier this offseason. Smith had a 29-25 record with the Seahawks before the trade and was a 2-time Pro Bowler and was the 2022 AP Comeback Player of the Year. This extension keeps him tied to Vegas for the next 3 seasons. It is 21 days to the NFL draft, and the Titans are hosting a pair of wide receivers on 30 visits. Tennessee wide receiver Dante Thornton and Washington State wide receiver Kyle Williams. Thornton's meeting with the Titans is April 15th, while Kyle Williams comes to town later next week. In NFL news, former UT quarterback Joe Milton has been traded from the Patriots, along with a 7th-rounder, to the Cowboys for a 5th-rounder. Milton was a 6th-round pick in the 2024 draft. He played in 1 game in his rookie season, completing 22 of 29 passes for 241 yards and a touchdown. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by all 4 Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. We're talking about Will Levis and Cam Ward, and Will Levis's, I guess, place in the quarterback room and future of the Tennessee Titans in 2025. I still am of the opinion that he will not be here, but I am being open about the possibility that they may be forced to keep him. Let's go to the phones real quick. Let's go to Jason, who wants to talk about the Tennessee Titans. Jason, you're on Blaine and Zach.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up?
What's going on?
Hey, love your show. Appreciate y'all letting me chime in. Just want to say that I think that taking Cam Ward is a mistake. I think you got to go with Travis Hunter, who's a sure thing, and try to find a good quarterback in round 2, and then try to get a more veteran quarterback to fill the 1 to 2 year ramp up that a college quarterback might need. I think that Cam Ward is not a sure thing. We've all seen him talk about how he's a pocket passer, that he doesn't scramble, but the NFL is going to make you need to scramble. And he's going to get frazzled from that. So, it'd be interesting to see how he adapts. He might end up being the next big thing, but I think that the odds are more in Travis Hunter's favor to pick for number 1, and we go with the quarterback for number 2 and trade for a quarterback to start instead of Will Levis.
All right. There's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, wow.
So I have to say this. My first instinct is to talk about he's a pocket passer and how everybody's talking about how he's a pocket passer. I feel like that's more Shadur Sanders' talking point than Cam Ward. Not to say that Cam Ward can't do it, but Cam Ward's ability to play out of structure, hence on the run, when you have pressure on you, is his big talking point. So I feel like, I feel like he maybe has gotten Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward confused. But there's not a second-round quarterback I'm willing to take a chance on at pick 35, and because you still need an edge rusher, you still need a wide receiver, and all this kind of stuff, and you don't have a third-round pick. So I'm definitely not in on any of these second-round quarterbacks over Cam Ward. And the veteran pool is pretty much all dried up for that 1 or 2 year vet. Like, whoever you draft, let's say in Jason's scenario, is likely going to be your starter, unless you're going to start Will Levis, and he's that
Would you
veteran.
trade for Kirk Cousins?
Oh gosh, I don't know. No, I mean, I guess if I'm
just
if I'm taking Travis Hunter, then I'd be more open to it. But are you playing? Gosh, should I ask Jason this? Are you playing Travis Hunter a cornerback, or are you playing him a wide receiver?
That's the first thing I thought.
Yeah.
No one knows if Cam Ward will be a success in this league, but given that he'll be probably the first pick or first quarterback taken for sure, you got it. The expectation is going to be very lofty, and they're going to be high.
Yeah.
So, whether he pans out or not, that's always open for discussion. We will never know until he gets here or gets there or wherever he goes, and see how good he does under the pressure. Because some of the things he does do, and I've said this before, I want to see how quickly it gets coached out of him.
Yeah.
Because he does some Will Levis-esque things that he got away with in college. That there is no bones about it. He did. And but he can be a pocket passer. I think he can do both. He can get outside the pocket on boots and everything else and get out there and create and make some dime throws. So you see where the potential can go. Now it's about taming it to the direction and then let him still be him without making those drastic errors. And I want to see how quickly that happens. His arm talent is special. He backpedals to make throws a la Mahomes or some of these elite quarterbacks that can throw from all these different angles. It's pretty impressive just to watch that. And also his confidence. So he's a guy, I would say, that can't be broken. And it will be interesting to see if it gets broken because he realizes that this is at a whole nother level because it will be somewhat of a shock on how fast these guys are. And I know he said it, but until you out there, do you really know how fast guys are moving now? And throws that he made, in college, he's not going to be able to make them.
Yeah, it's good to have a quarterback with arm arrogance, but you as a coaching staff have to harness that arm arrogance appropriately. And they had a real hard time harnessing Will Levis's arm arrogance. But here's the thing. I think Cam Ward is more adaptable or amenable to the changes and maybe the way that they're going to communicate and adapt this. Develop him here. I don't think that there was a really good marriage between Brian Callahan and Will Levis.
And he learned that.
Yeah, and I think he learned that. Exactly. He learned that, and I think when you have an experience that you went through as a coach with Will Levis, I think you wouldn't make the same mistakes of drafting a guy that you feel like you're going to have those same issues with. And they're going to have way more information about Cam Ward than they did about Will Levis, Cam Ward the person, than they did about Will Levis coming through this go-around. Let's go to Joe, who wants to talk Tennessee Titans. Joe, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Good afternoon on a rainy day. We had this conversation at the start of last season, Blaine. We talked about Levis, his lack of situational awareness. I think I used the analogy that he was still trying to steal third base if there were two outs. I don't see him on this team. I actually think it's better for him to move on because he has sort of been painted with this fan base. I think it would be better for him to get a clean shot somewhere else for his own sake. And again, I don't see him, fitting into the plans that the Titans are going to have for next year. So I think it's better for everybody if he moves on. I don't know what draft.
What if you can't find any trade partners?
Well, that's what I mean. Well, what do somebody give us a 7 for him or a 6 for him?
I hope so.
That would be. I'm sure the Titans would jump all over it if they could. Anyway, thanks. Enjoy the program.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
And I'm sure that's what they're hoping. Something like that happens. I mean, especially in preseason.
I assume that they're going to see this Joe Milton trade and they're going to expect a minimum of a 5th round pick. I mean, it'd be very hard pressed, for me in my mind to say, well, Joe Milton got a 5th. I can't get a 5th for a 3rd round pick of Will Levis. And I understand what Will Levis has put on tape at the NFL level. But there's no shortage of teams that will have that I can fix them mentality that we've talked about.
Yeah.
So I'd be very hard pressed to be okay with just a 6th or a 7th. I was a little bit more amenable about it with Malik Willis, even though I thought that Malik Willis should have made the final 53 on this team.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, they obviously have given up on him at that point. They're going to trade him for a 7th. I guess that's okay. But for Will Levis, I think you got to get more than that. I like the process of let him go through training camp and making a trade around the roster cutdown day. I just wouldn't like the result if it was a 7th or a 6th round pick.
Yeah, but if you get
Beggars can't be choosers, I guess, though,
well, if
too.
you get in the crunch and you don't have any other offers, I think that, you're going to have to go that route because, sometimes a change of scenery is good. So I'm interested to see, hopefully he plays well in the preseason if it gets to that point and he's still on the roster and get an opportunity and they see him in a different light, at least enough to take a flyer on him with, maybe a 5th-round pick. And I think the Titans would probably say, okay, yeah, I think we'll do that.
Let's go to V, who wants to talk about the quarterback situation. V, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, what's going on, fellas? How y'all doing?
Doing good. How are you?
You got a V.
I'm doing good. So I just want to say there's a lot of people, and we go through this every year when the draft comes around. Nobody knows how anybody is going to pan out.
Uh-huh.
Like, it doesn't matter if you're first, doesn't matter if you're second or third pick. Nobody knows at the end of the day until we actually get to the action.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody, I think it was one of the other callers saying that he don't think that Cam's going to be a good pick or this and that. Nobody knows how anybody's going to pan out. We can get Travis Hunter, and he can, God forbid, get hurt on the first play, and then what? Then we won't have anything that we got for the draft. But another thing that I wanted to tell you guys is, I wanted to know from you guys, when we pick a wide receiver, because I know we're going to pick one, from y'all, what would be the ideal wide receiver that you think that we would get in the second round? And I'll hang up and listen to you.
All right, thanks, Fee. Yeah, second-round wide receivers are interesting. I look at a guy like Trey. It depends on what you want, right? If you're someone that thinks they need a true X-wide receiver, there's the kid from Stanford, Elick, I'm butchering his name, I'm sure, Ayamanor, from Stanford. Big, tall, wide receiver, prototypical X. Trey Harris out of Ole Miss is another guy. Obviously, if, Emeka Egbuka falls
Ohio
or
State.
Luther Burden falls, Ohio State and Missouri respectively, you should be all in on those guys. But at the end of the day, I feel like what's going to be right there are your guys that can be borderline outside wide receivers and inside. They're basically inside guys with outside flexibility, like a Jalen Noel out of Iowa State. So it's just really pick your poison. This Tennessee Titans team needs someone that can play outside and someone that can play inside. Ideally, you'd like to have two players that can do both because you would love to have the chess pieces. But this is a 11 personnel over 68% of the time team, which means that your slot wide receiver is just as important as your outside wide receiver.
Yeah, we concur. So
there you go. Let's go to
break.
Let's go to break. So we'll go to break. We'll get to Anthony and JD after the break. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here at 105 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. We're talking about the delicate balance between drafting Cam Ward and keeping Will Levis, theoretically, on the roster as a backup quarterback. We'll continue that discussion. Let's go to JD, who wants to talk about the quarterback situation. JD, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, guys. How you doing? Thanks for taking my call.
Doing good. How are you?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. On my perspective of it, if you're the Titans and you see yourself a year from now in the same position, was taking Cam Ward this year beneficial, or do you trade back, stock up draft picks, and be in this same spot, top 5 next year, and you get a better quarterback class? I just think if the Titans right now are not a quarterback away from being where they need to be, and in my opinion, I go, even if you have to keep Levis around for another year, or go find another veteran quarterback if there's one available. But I say you got to trade this pick back, and you got to stock up on picks and get your guy next year. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, JD. I don't disagree with the premise, but I will say that I think the Tennessee Titans love Cam Ward compared to what they know what's coming out next year. Now, doesn't mean that. I think that's why the possibility of a trade is always there, because if you're keeping, let's say you trade back with the Giants, right? And you get what we've heard that they're rumored to be asking is 2 additional first-round picks outside of the pick swap. Well, those picks can get you any quarterback in that next year's draft class, hypothetically speaking. So at some point, that could be fine, but I think that until that offer comes, you're going to draft Cam Ward. Because I go back to what Ron Wolf has said, former Packers GM, who Reggie McKenzie learned under, who Chad Brinker learned under. All these guys have all said, and it is a common theme across the NFL. If you don't have a quarterback, don't worry, make plans for the Super Bowl. If you don't have a team until you have a quarterback. And at some point, we have to understand that we don't know what Cam Ward's going to be, but he is the clear best quarterback in this draft. And if they love him, their actions have shown that they love him, they should absolutely draft him, and everything else will sort itself out.
Yeah, to the caller's point, you got to have some players in this, and it seems as though trading back and getting multiple pieces would be perfect because you're not a quarterback away. But if you don't have any players that you think are going to give you what is worthy of the pick, then you have to continue your evaluation, whether it's a quarterback or whoever else you think is deserving of that first-round pick, and then maybe reverse course and say, well, maybe we'll get our quarterback first. Whether you like it or not, you say, hey, he is worthy of being a franchise quarterback. So I'm with the caller. I would prefer to go the other route in that order. That way you don't mess up your quarterback. But unfortunately, it looks like there's not any players, at least to this point. We haven't heard any rumors of anything. But and if not, you got to stick and stay. And if you fall in love and you love and passionate about your quarterback and have conviction about him, then you take him.
Yeah, because it's not as simple as it used to be also anymore, predicting who's coming out of college.
Right.
Because NIL has kind of screwed all that up. And that's a good thing for the college players, believe me. But at the end of the day, you don't know. I mean, everybody thought Carson Beck was coming out, right? And and before the injury, everybody tabbed him as to be a borderline first-round pick, which I thought they were all crazy to begin with. But, then he chose to go for $8 million, however much it was, down in to Miami. And that's could happen next year, right? I mean, you may think Drew Aller or Garrett Nussmeier are coming out, and maybe those quarterbacks are better, but then maybe they stay. Maybe Nico stays. Maybe Arch Manning stays. And then you're kind of going through 2 years, and nobody's going to survive in this league 2 years without a quarterback. You get what I'm saying? Or you're drafting a worse quarterback because you didn't draft Cam Ward this year.
Or you trade for Kirk Cousins.
Or you trade for Kirk Cousins. Just signed Drew Lock. Let's go to Anthony, who wants to talk about Will Levis. Anthony, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, guys. I think you keep Will Levis. And here's why, right? You're taking a guy out of college. And to me, the quarterback position is the most cerebral in sports. You can have all the talent in the world, but you never know when that light is going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you an example. New England has done it for years, right? They take a guy, and maybe Will learns without the pressure. You took him directly out of college. Everybody was excited over his arm talent. Everybody agrees on that. He goes through 1 year in the NFL with super speed or whatever, and we're ready to throw him out for a 7th-round draft pick. Keep him no matter who you draft. And then it's the NFL. Chances are he's going to get in during the year. Mm-hmm. If he gets in and he's ready, you can turn around and trade him like New England has done for Castle, and I don't know how. It's like 3 or 4 quarterbacks they've done, where they've gotten Garoppolo, and who's the black quarterback also? He's still around.
Brissett?
Yep. Yeah. They've done it for years, and they get a lot more return. Nobody's going to be expecting Will Levis to take over Cam Ward's job or whoever you draft, right? So he can learn without pressure. You never know when it's going to go. Look at Brett Favre. That's my point, guys. So you guys talk about that. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah, I like the premise, but it's hard now because organizations and fan bases, everybody are impatient. That's why I've been saying, I think, man, you don't force it, but now if you do go Cam Ward, I would say, hey, we need to keep him on the roster, especially if he's going to be a good soldier in the meeting rooms. If he's not a problem, then if I believe that will happen, then I'm cool with it. If I'm a coach, I would have no issue. And matter of fact, I would be so direct and upfront with him when the competition is over that, hey, we decided to go with Cam Ward. Obviously, you knew this was a possibility. And hey, guess what? Wait your turn, stay focused. You never know what could happen. Guess what, though? Some coaches don't like having those conversations. And then if they are, then they shouldn't be coaching.
Well, so let me ask you the question. You draft Cam Ward, what is the conversation you have with Will Levis?
Nothing. You're going to compete. That's it. And then when I make the decision on who starts, because I'm the head coach, then I'll tell him. That's it. It's competition. That's it. There is no competition. He knows once they draft a guy first pick, ultimately, even if he did start, as soon as he messes up, he's out.
He's out. So Ricky W. asks, he says he thinks Levis would be a good backup.
I do too.
He says, my concern is he outperforms Ward in camp with another year in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go down this hypothetical. Levis outperforms Ward in camp and outperforms Ward in the preseason. Now, we have said numerous times on this thing, it's not the same as being in the regular season. So what happens if that happens in your mind? If you're the coach, Levis starts day one in that scenario over the first overall pick? Or what's going on through your head if Levis outperforms Ward?
Watch this.
Okay.
Now you're being a coach.
Okay.
What did your eyeball see, coach? What did your eyeball see?
Yeah.
And if he outplayed him, he plays.
Gotcha.
He plays. Because guess what now? You're now messing with all the other players on the team. They saw it too.
Yeah.
They saw it. So if he plays better and is a better player, and guess what? You got to believe ultimately he'll go back to who he is.
Shortest leash ever, right? Yeah. Like pretty much.
Ultimately, you got to believe that.
Yeah.
Eventually. And then guess what? You may be doing a favor to Cam Ward because obviously then if he beat him out, he wasn't ready.
Right.
He wasn't ready. So don't force it. Let it happen. And if he beats him out, Cam Ward, then he gets the job.
Do you think that ownership, do you think that they force anything, or you think that she really does, the ownership group really does, is taking a step back and saying,
we're really going in the weeds now.
Okay.
Because I have no idea what I don't think Amy's ever forced him to play anybody.
Yeah.
Like if I was making a guess.
Right.
So I don't think that happens. I think she may be asking, why is he not playing? And they were like, well, he's not quite ready. We don't want to mess him up. And then she goes about her business and continue running the team.
Goes back, hops back onto her plane over.
It could keep writing those checks.
Yeah, keep writing those checks.
So, eventually it will come to fruition that he'll be out there. And you got to believe that. But right now, he was the better player.
Yeah. Better player plays.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's me.
Yeah.
Some coaches
won't do that, but
they don't go by that.
Okay, so Ryan says if you think you need someone to push Ward, this is back to our earlier conversation talking about physical pushing, then you shouldn't take him at number 1 overall. What do you think about that comment?
I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta. I mean, what do you think? I mean,
I think that's a little too black and white, and the world is not black and white, and there's a lot of nuance to all this. And to me, it's like you're just trying to provide the best competition to get the best out of your players.
I mean, like, you're doing it at every position.
Yeah, right. It's not we're not just talking about this is something you can apply to every position, right? You can apply this to running back. I mean, don't you want to bring in running backs that can fill in or push the competition? Because what if that guy gets hurt, right? That other guy's going to have to play a lot more. So to me,
it's a win-win.
Yeah, like it's a win-win. And he follows that up with, he goes, why did Arizona get rid of Rosen when they took Kyler? The locker room needs to know who the leader is. Well, the locker room's going to know by the actions of the player, not by what's on a depth chart. And Josh Rosen was a weirdo who had a bad attitude, no drive. It was well known that he was not the quarterback. And look at how his career turned out. And he couldn't latch on anywhere because he didn't have the love for the game. It was well known. That was one of the big knocks in the draft process. Is like we don't think this guy really loves football.
That's the kid from UCLA, right?
Gosh, yeah. I think it was UCLA, if I'm not mistaken. The same year that Baker and all of them, and he was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick that year, and then he fell down the draft boards because they did not believe that he loved the game of football. I don't get that sense from Will Levis.
No, I don't get that at all.
So to me, if Cam Ward can't establish leader by action, by words, when he steps through when we know that he's done that every step of the way through college, then that's not a Will Levis issue. That is a Cam Ward issue.
And I think, Ward has shown he's a leader all the way across the board. So if he gets beat out, he's going to handle like a champ and go start grinding and make sure that he is the guy. So, so I think there's a win-win here, if he is on the roster. As long as he has the right attitude, Will Levis and Cam Ward too, then I'm just not a big proponent. I know it's different now. I'm just handing him. Let's at least illusion that this is a competition.
And like I said, we knew that Mason Rudolph was going to be the backup quarterback. And I think that sucks that we all knew that, but they put everybody through the motions like there was a backup quarterback position, a battle. There really wasn't. Like we all knew it was, and so like it's a fraudulent competition. And I kind of feel like that's even if we all know that it's a fraudulent competition, it's better to at least have that illusion than it is to have where there is no illusion whatsoever.
Well, with your words, illusion, what you're trying to do as a coach is you're trying to buy yourself time as Cam Ward catches up.
Yeah.
To everything else.
Got to catch up to the speed, learning the regimen.
And then hopefully when it's time to make that decision, he now has eclipsed the other guy or at least is even. Yeah. And if it's even, then the younger guy is the better player.
Well, some people take to it faster, right? Carolina Panthers, we just saw Bryce Young struggled his first 18 starts. He got benched. And then Andy Dalton came in. But he had Andy Dalton as a really good mentor there. And Andy Dalton is nothing to write home about, but Andy Dalton's better than Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle.
Oh, speaking of Andy Dalton, I heard my man Dan Orlovsky say that's what Shedeur Sanders
I thought that was Tim Hasselbeck.
Oh, no, it was Tim Hasselbeck.
Or is it Trent Dilfer?
No, it was Tim Hasselbeck. It was Hasselbeck.
Yeah. I texted
him after that. I said,
"Did you?
Yeah, Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton played. What did he say? 17 years.
Yeah, he's still going.
I was like, okay. So just average to solid quarterback.
Yeah, I don't believe that. But he said that's his ceiling. I don't think Andy Dalton is his ceiling.
I didn't want to contest him on that on no text. Yeah.
But I look at it and I go like, at least you have that guy to fall back on. I mean, again, Anthony Richardson, his first year, they had Gardner Minshew, but they didn't even give Gardner, they didn't even have the illusion of a competition. They just said it was Anthony Richardson, and Gardner Minshew is a really good backup, and he's probably, gosh, I'm sure I'm missing a backup, but he's probably the best backup in the league. And he played better than Anthony Richardson. Just think if they would have let Gardner Minshew play instead of just thrusting Anthony Richardson in that spotlight. Now, again, I am not advocating for Cam Ward to sit. But again, it's about having a guy that can push a guy even further. Cam Ward's going to push himself. Cam Ward's going to have his own drive, but you're trying to take it to another level. You're like, you already got gas in your car that can win a race, and then you crank up the NOS at the very end and you get that speed racing. That's what you're looking for. That guy to take him to another level, mentally, physically, no matter what. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
But they act like there is. That's how I feel.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. So, hey, it's no different than if you're, training for some employee at the same time, then that guy or girl is going to be the one that's going to take over because they just have more talent. And if they put in the work, then eventually it's going to happen. It's just the way it is.
I think when you kind of look at it too, to me, it's not really about. There is obviously a delicate balance in the locker room because Will Levis has already been here. People know what Will Levis is. So does that play for him or against him? To be honest with you.
I don't know. I think it's about the coach and the perception of the fan base. So really, that's who has the pressure. I don't think Will Levis is thinking about it. If he is, then he's not the guy. That's for sure. So you can't be worried about what people are saying. People are entitled to their own opinion. All you can do is control what you can control, and that's you. So I think if he wins out and everybody sees it, I think it's okay. Now, that doesn't mean there's going to be some ramifications from the fan base. But if he looks like he's better, like even better than what he was.
Yeah.
Like, forget, Cam Ward or whoever, if he looks different, you will know. You go, he went through his progression reads.
Well, it's like when we all knew about Malik Willis, right? I mean, it was plain as day that he took that major jump.
Yeah.
Now, that major jump still does not land you as a viable 17-game starter.
Right.
But it does land you as a viable backup. And that's what you're looking for out of Will Levis. You're not necessarily looking for a guy to turn into the starter. You're looking for a guy that at least turns into a viable backup. And then maybe if he has to play in spot duty and he looks good, you may be able to trade him for a little bit more, right? And there you go. So I kind of look at it like this. And
I think that's the plan.
I think that's the plan. So here's my question to you. We talked about at the beginning of the show, our opening question was like, do you trust Brian Callahan, Nick Holtz, and Bo Hardegree to develop Cam Ward? That obviously has gotten derailed. But my question to you is, do you trust Brian Callahan to handle this properly? Because you didn't, we kind of were a little iffy on how he handled Will Levis and Mason Rudolph last year in the season. So do you trust him to get this kind of situation right where he communicates effectively, makes it very clear what the situation is between these two guys?
Well, that's yet to be determined. I have no idea. One thing I can say, man, he's almost like reading out of a book. He says all the right things. And guess what? That makes me nervous in itself.
So why does that make you nervous in and of itself?
Well, because guess what? The action didn't reflect him on the football field. So that's like you reading out of a book and you know all the answers.
Yeah.
But the reflection of when you have to act it out, you can't do it. And that's what happens when you become the coach. He can't go play. So then the reflection is on him. So I don't know if it's him more or is it Will Levis? Or was it Mason Rudolph? Because all I could say is the offense looked the same.
Yeah.
It never changed. It didn't matter who was the quarterback. See, so that's what was concerning to me. Other than that, everything else, he was learning on the go as a first-year head coach. I thought he did a solid job other than that. But I don't know if he's a quarterback whisperer or this quarterback developer like everybody's trying to say that he was when he got hired. Not to say that he said it, but that's what he sold everyone. So I have to see it in the second season because you don't know if he got a really fair shot of it because of Will Levis. So we shall see if Cam Ward develops throughout his time in action on the field. We'll know that
he is
the guy.
And we'll know what the offensive line coach is, too. Because, I'll be honest. I know Bill Callahan has this really great resume, but it did not show up last year in terms of player evaluation.
So you watching both Callahans, huh?
I'm watching both Callahans. Listen, I'm watching both Callahans. I'm watching Denard Wilson. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered from this coaching staff heading into this year. It's not quarterback's the biggest question, but there's questions about this defense. There's questions about the offensive line. The Tyke Tolbert developing a pass catcher outside of Calvin Ridley, who is already developed. Like, where are we going with Tyke Tolbert and these wide receivers? I have no questions about Randy Jordan, so applaud to Randy Jordan right now, the running backs coach. So I have no questions about him.
It was a former player himself. I remember watching him in like high school. So,
but I got questions all littered out through this coaching staff right now. And, at some point, they got to answer the bell all across the way. But there's something to that, and that's what we're going to talk about when we come back, because you brought up something off air that we're going to talk about on air, and it's about Brian Callahan and mentioning Joe Burrow all the time. This is Covered 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone.
Did you know Eurofix has a very different business philosophy? They staff all their locations with more staff than the average auto repair shop, just so they can be ready when an emergency pops up out of nowhere. So have you ever noticed how hard it is to get a right now appointment for a vehicle repair? Well, some dealers can be more than 2 weeks out just to get a freaking appointment, but not Eurofix. Eurofix has been offering quality repairs that beat the dealer without the dealer pricing since 1999. Plus a 3-year nationwide warranty and the staff to fix your car right now. So if you're tired of waiting forever to get your car into the shop, then call Eurofix. And owner Aaron Stokes says we will never be too busy for our customers. We're here to take their pain away, and we mean right now. And Eurofix repairs all European cars, and Eurofix says yes to speedy repair when others can't or won't. Family owned for 26 years. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. But always tell them, Blaze,
Cover 2 with oh man, apparently I messed it up. There's apparently a big drop coming. I was supposed to come in at this point. Jackson put his hands in the air. He stood up from his seat. He's like, "What are you doing?" I have to be honest, never heard this song before, so I did not know that was coming.
Bergonzi.
Yeah.
You messed up.
Mike Bergonzi. We didn't do it today. We got to say Mike Bergonzi. That's our
is that
the
what
cue. You gotta say
Mike Bergonzi, like we know another Bergonzi.
Yeah. But apparently I messed it up because we were talking about that. He's like, man, I really enjoy that how you always, come in when the beat drops. And this is the first time I've really screwed one up. You have to give me props here, Jackson.
Yeah, I did do the full-on Will Levis surrender Cobra back here.
He put the hands in the hair and surrender Cobra. He's like, what are you doing? That's my bad.
Never
that's
Will
my
Levis's
bad.
fault, right?
Yeah, that's my bad. I can recover, unlike Will Levis, from my mistakes. So you brought up an interesting point. We were talking about Brian Callahan and talking about developing a quarterback and all this kind of stuff. And you said you don't like how he keeps bringing up Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's unprompted. Sometimes he's asked about Joe Burrow, but a lot of times he's unprompted. So, and he's done it a lot.
I know.
He's done it a lot since he's been hired.
I know.
Now, I played devil's advocate, and I said, well, that's pretty much the only quarterback he's ever, quote, unquote, developed. We don't know. We know that Joe Burrow's given him props, but we don't know really what he's done behind the scenes. But also, you brought up, said, well, we're talking about the number 1 overall pick and one of the best quarterback prospects to come out of the draft. I mean, how much was he ever going to need to be developed at the next level?
Right. He needed development. The true test, here's where I was going, is the true test of a coach is getting the most out of the talent of the actual player. So he did get that, but okay, I want to hear you about a guy nobody knew. How about talk about Jake Browning? Was he there on the staff when he was there?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about talk about him? Because guess what? Nobody knew that he would be what he is when he went in for Burrow. How about this? Maybe how about us trade the pick and then we use one of those picks to get Jake Browning, who you developed, who knows the offense, and then you get multiple picks and you give him a decent contract, but you don't have to break the bank. How about let's talk about that?
Because he wasn't a drafted free agent, too.
Right. All right, from Washington, right?
Yeah, but I mean, he wasn't drafted.
So I want to talk about how his development was. That's a true testament to his coaching because he did develop him, by the way, and he looked good when he got out there.
Yeah.
So I'd hear about not an elite level guy. How about that guy that was under the radar? And where'd you get him? Because if you can get him, you can get anybody. Guess what? My aunt could have got Joe Burrow because there was nothing gonna stop him. There was nothing going to stop him, this guy being successful. He just has it.
Once you saw after the LSU game where he's got the cigar and all that. I said it when he was
a junior.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, no. And then that senior came and everybody, I said, he was showing signs the whole time.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit to get the gel and the chemistry when you're a quarterback, when you're a transfer like that. I said he showed all the signs. And he had the moxies and the cojones to say, I am him.
It does. When you brought up that point, it made me think man, he's really setting expectations high. Because all fans are hearing is Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow. Brian Callahan talking about Joe Burrow. This is what we did with Joe. This is what we did with Joe Burrow. This is how we got the most out of Joe Burrow. This is what we wanted to make sure that year 3 of Joe Burrow or year 1 of Joe Burrow here was like year 3 of LSU.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, that's great, but you kind of did bring up a good point that, okay, that's all signs maybe that they're drafting Cam Ward. You could take that from there. But when you're talking about expectations, development, all that kind of stuff, now everybody's going to be kind of expecting Joe Burrow. And guess who Cam Ward's always going to be compared with? Not Will Levis. Because of this offseason narrative, he's going to be compared to Joe Burrow.
Hey, man. Hey, that's my favorite quarterback right now.
Yeah.
Man, if he could be that boy, we got really,
but
really
that's
lucky.
setting expectations really high by Brian. And I don't think that's his intention.
No, I don't either.
But I also do understand that, okay, I understand that everybody knows Joe Burrow, and he's the more well-known name. But you're right. It's like when he came over here, right? When he came over here, it was Joe Burrow this, Joe Burrow that. Well, I worked with Matt Stafford, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning said this about me. And I was able to do this with Derek Carr. Okay, that's a great resume builder, but we don't know how much of that. Those are all guys that were established outside of Joe Burrow. Those were all four of those guys I named. Three guys I named, I think, were established starters. Derek Carr, Matt Stafford, Peyton Manning. Okay, those don't count. They were good before you got there. Joe Burrow was obviously one of the best quarterback prospects, one of the best. He came from one of the best college teams, one of the best quarterback prospects of that year. Clear cut, better than everybody else. Anybody that tried to make it, everything else was just narratives because that you had to have conversation. Well, what if it's not Joe Burrow? What if it's Tua? What if it's this? Joe Burrow was the guy. So at that point, again, that's kind of cheating using Joe Burrow, right? I mean, is that feels like it.
And guess what? They did start off slow.
Yeah.
That first year there. I think he got injured, actually, at the end of that. But so I think I got a little, hey, that's enough of the Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about something. I'd love for him to talk about Browning, which he was part of that whole conversation.
Let's talk about Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. Like, what did you learn from them?
Yeah.
And we saw some inside of that in his sit down with Easton Freeze. But, like, what did you learn from Will Levis that's going to help you with Cam Ward?
I mean, he even said he went back and recalibrate what he saw from Burrow because they said everything was on kind of Zoom and
yeah, all the pre-draft meetings and everything.
And I was like, well, man, but like.
Again, they're comparing him to Joe Burrow, right? I mean, isn't that kind of comparing Cam Ward to Joe Burrow?
I would say so. I would say so. So maybe he just thinks there's some similarities there, maybe not in their throwing style, but in their personalities.
Maybe.
And maybe how they take in information and learn and all those things. So maybe that's why I kept bringing him because he reminded him so much of like on the mental side.
Yeah.
But, man, thinking we're going to get the next Joe Burrow, man, let's calm that. He didn't say that, but it's kind of implied because he keeps bringing it up. So
right.
I just like it's almost like he's also trying to justify that I can coach because I coach Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and that's really, and I think
we all know
Ryan's kind of on this in the chat. He says it's he's trying to display his experience with developing a number one pick from the beginning. And that's fine, but I mean, this is an entirely different staff than that staff. I mean, I get that this is a very well-respected, well-experienced staff, and I'm not trying to diminish the staff, but I mean, we don't know if Brian Callahan is a good head coach or not, and we didn't know if Zach Taylor was a good head coach or not. And there's some people that still don't know if Zach Taylor is a good head coach or not. But at the end of the day, Cam Ward is nowhere near the prospect that Joe Burrow was. So no. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that he went to refresh himself, but I also think by saying that, you're because let me tell you, if you don't think that's not setting expectations, just go look at Twitter. Because that's all that Twitter was talking about when that thing's
Twitter is saying that.
Yeah, well, I mean, Twitter. But that, to me, it's just, again, your point is that Joe Burrow, Peyton Manning, Matt Stafford, Derek Carr, maybe he did improve those games. Maybe he did help them along the way. But those aren't the best examples. The better example of true coaching ability, development ability, is what you did when no one else could. Yeah. And that would be Jake Browning. So what did you do with Jake Browning is a much better conversation and a much more realistic
approach to like, okay, this is how I operate and this is what happened with when working with someone and nobody even thought was a NFL capable drafting guy. And I made him into, a starting quarterback. Oh, that sells me way more than the number one guy. And all these veteran guys who are already successful before you got there. And I get it because people know who Joe Burrow is more so than not. But I just think it was just a little too much. And maybe because of all of the bad chatter on Twitter and everything else. I'm like, damn, hell, what all did he say? So I went there. Now I'm starting gathering information and going to listen to him. Like, dang, man, know if I would have brought up Joe Burrow so much. I don't know if I would have done.
Well, it's like when Traylon Burks got drafted, and everybody is, of course, naturally going to compare him to A.J. Brown because A.J. Brown got traded. But that is sometimes the situation. Nobody's saying that they're pro comps, right? They're saying actually, Burks and A.J. Brown kind of was a pro comp, but that's not what anybody's saying when we're talking about their career paths are always going to be compared. And that's because, guess what? Brian Callahan supposedly developed Joe Burrow. Well, why couldn't he do it with Cam Ward? That's going to be the question. Again, those situations will be compared.
Your man Easter Freeze said it speeds up the timeline. Doesn't slow it down.
Doesn't slow it down. All right. That will do it for us. 3HL's up next. Y'all stay safe out there. I know there's some storms coming. Football and Other Efforts tonight at 6 p.m. We'll still be live. Rain or shine, we'll be there. This has been Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone. And in the meantime.
And in between time.
Peace.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.